Sound check, 1, 2, 3, sound check, 1, 2, 3, someone please confirm.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, Alan. It's like we are correcting, isn't it?
Good morning, Chair. Yes, there's currently, I think, 6 members on the platform, so it forms a quorum.
Okay. Let me see if the video. Good morning, honorable members. Morning to the Auditor-General and your team. The support teams from Parliament, PBO, SCOF team, and legal services and communication and others. The media, the public, you are all welcome. Are there apologies?
No apologies received, Chairperson.
Okay, no apologies received. The meeting is officially open. We are here for one item today. Item 2, briefing by the Auditor-General on the audit outcomes of National Treasury and entities within the finance portfolio. Over to you, Member Tanzima, and your team.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members, the executives within the finance portfolio, and also my fellow colleagues from the Auditor-General. Before I start, Honorable Chair, I would like to introduce the team from the Auditor-General by starting with myself. I am Nombagamo Matanzima. I am the business unit leader that oversees the finance portfolio. With me today, I've got Kumar Naika, who's the deputy business unit leader that oversees as well the finance portfolio. I've got Lwazi Kuse, the senior manager of National Treasury and its entities, and who will be the leading presenter for our briefing today. I've got Sidiso Tipe, the Senior Manager for the SARS Audit, and I've got Putehi Matladi, the Senior Manager for the PIC Audit, and Zianda Vichima, the Senior Manager for DBSA and Land Bank. I just introduce only the key entities, the key big entities. Honorable Chair and honorable members, thank you once again for affording us this opportunity to share with you the insights that we've generated for the finance portfolio throughout this audit process. And our insights today speaks to service delivery, speaks to the financial management to ensure that the funds have been utilized accordingly, and also speaks to the compliance with the laws and regulations, so that as the committee, we can able to exercise oversight responsibilities. Last year, Honorable Chair and members, we have adopted our culture shift strategy as the Auditor-General. And at the core of our 2030 culture shift strategy is for us as the Auditor-General, partnering with various key role players of government, including yourselves and executives and executive authorities, to shift the public sector culture. And that culture we're talking about is a culture that is characterized by performance, a culture that is really characterized by integrity, a culture that is characterized by transparency, and a culture that is characterized by accountability. So at the core, again, is all about service delivery. And the most important thing is what it has. The service delivery must have a direct impact on the lived experiences of our citizens. Honorable Chair, you remember in the previous year, the finance portfolio accountability process was delayed. And this was really due to non-finalization of the key departments within the portfolio, which is National Treasury, due to the dispute between ourselves and the National Treasury regarding on the technical support and the maintenance payments that were made on the IFMS project. Just to update the committee in that regard, that dispute is still in existence, and we have received a correspondence that the matter from the acting DG that the matter will be taken for legal recourse. We also received a correspondence as well for requesting the Auditor-General to also perform a real-time audit on the IFMS project. So that's the status of IFMS. On an overall basis, Honorable Chair and members, the performance of the finance portfolio, we've seen a significant improvement on an overall basis from when you compare to the previous years, including the first year of administration. We've seen clean audits that have increased and improved. Specifically, we've seen some of the key entities, including the small ones, being clean. For example, the audit of SARS, financial intelligence centers, just to name the few. We've also seen some of the key entities as well maintaining that clean audit status. One of those entities is DBSA, who is leading in the maintaining of that, including we also elevated some insights as well in terms of the service delivery, the infrastructure that DBSA is doing as this mandate in terms of the implementing agent of infrastructure. What I can see from overall is that from the portfolio itself, these improvements are really attributable to the improved control environment. We've seen the strong leadership cultures in these entities, and also the effective governance structures, the audit committees and the internal audit are working together. Honorable Chair as well, I think from the previous year, as well in the current year, we continue to build on the foundation we laid last year relating to the role that is being played by National Treasury as a coordinating institution to support the local government municipalities, specifically those that are in financial distress. We have elevated some of the insights that we have generated in that regard, and Lwazi will take over us on the key insights that we've elevated there. Without further ado, Honorable Chair, and with your permission, I would like to hand over to Lwazi Kuse, who will lead us on the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matanzima. Greetings, Honorable Chair, honorable members. I'm not sure if there are any representatives from the Executive Authority, but also greetings to the heads of the various entities, the accounting officers, accounting authority members. Greetings to management, my colleagues from the AGSA, and those who are in attendance with us this morning. As has been indicated, my name is Lwazi Kuse, and my role today will be to take you through the presentation outlining the audit outcomes for the 22-23 financial year. For purposes of navigating the presentation here, I'll take down my video so that there is a stable connectivity. Thank you. Chairperson, in the opening remarks, our business unit leader makes mention of the fact that we have a new strategy with effect from the 1st of April 2022, which we call Culture Shift 2030. And this culture shift strategy is reflected in the presentation and the outcomes themselves, reflected in the sense that our objective with the strategy is to not only speak of audit outcomes or the improvements thereof, but we want to see improvement on the service delivery imperatives. And so as I go through the presentation, I will be touching on the various performance associated with some of the clean audit outcomes or with some of the outcomes in the portfolio. Despite the change in our strategy, Chair, our mission and vision has remained unchanged. Our mission as an office is to strengthen our country's democracy by enabling oversight, accountability, and governance in the public sector. And this we achieve through auditing and thereby building the public confidence. Another important aspect, Chair, on our vision is that the change in the strategy to Culture Shift 2030 is really in response to our vision to be a relevant Supreme Audit Institute. And our relevance is characterized by responding to the needs of the citizens. And some of the calls have been made to say, AG, we hear that auditee A or B is clean, but we don't see service delivery. How do you then close that gap? And how do you then build public confidence and ensure that these clean audit outcomes are not at the expense of service delivery? Some might jokingly say that the easiest way to a clean audit outcome is to not take any significant decisions, to not spend on your budget, and ultimately, the lesser the risk you take and the lesser the activities that entity conducts translates into a clean audit outcome. So this strategy then seeks to close that gap and ensure that we focus largely on the larger entities within the portfolio and as to whether those are they delivering on their mandate. Chairperson, in order to achieve this ambitious task, we believe that it won't be done by just the AG on its own. We have identified various stakeholders, which we then refer to as the accountability ecosystem. And these stakeholders start all the way from officials within the various auditees, all the way to the support and oversight structures including this committee. And what we are simply saying with all the stakeholders is that we need to work together, collaborate, and ultimately ensure that the audit outcomes as well as the service delivery imperatives are sustained such that they impact positively on our citizens. So each and every role player in our accountability ecosystem has a unique role to play. And our commitment to those stakeholders is then to ensure that we share the necessary insights with tailor-made messages for the various stakeholders. Whether we are talking to internal auditors, we have then a message that seeks to assist the internal audit units to deliver on their respective mandates. We share these insights across with the objective of ultimately influencing behavior to one that is characterized, as my colleague had mentioned, by improved outcomes, improved service delivery. And where, of course, these conversations don't yield the necessary results, certainly we have our enforcement powers related to material irregularities that we intend to use and will be using throughout the implementation of our strategy. Another important aspect that important stakeholder that we identify is what we call coordinating ministries. These are ministries where their respective mandates or roles cut across various spheres of government and speak to a number of public sector institutions. And here we are referring to the likes of COCTA, the National Treasury, Public Service and Administration. And our intention here, Chairperson, is to build partnerships just going beyond the auditor-auditee relationship. And these partnerships then will translate into us working together, influencing and shifting this public sector culture. If we look at National Treasury as one of the entities or auditees within the portfolio, our intention through the work we are performing on coordinating ministries is to unpack the National Treasury's mandate, identify the interventions and programs that National Treasury has put in place, work collectively together with the department over the 2030 strategic period. And in that working together process, we then start seeing the necessary improvements and leveraging from some of our respective mandates. If I then reflect on the portfolio and the composition of the portfolio, Chairperson, we are reporting on a total of 16 auditees. These 16 auditees are led by the Department of National Treasury, and we have then the 5 segments, namely the regulatory agencies, government components, the development banks, the insurance and investment institutions, as well as the revenue authority. Our presentation, or the total number of 16, excludes what we call Section 4.3 entities, and these are auditees that are audited by auditors appointed directly by these institutions. Here we are referring to the ASB as well as SASRIA. So those don't form part of our presentation today, Chair. Chairperson, I think it's important as we start today's conversation to just reflect on the progress we have made when we reflect on the prior year recommendations, because certainly this conversation we're having this year is a continuation of the conversations we've been having over the years in relation to audit outcomes. In the last audit cycle, just to give context, my colleague does indicate that certainly there were delays to the portfolio outcomes and the tabling of them, and that was impacted by the IFMS. But not only that, Chairperson, in the prior year outcomes themselves, we indicated that the audit outcomes were somewhat stagnating. We were observing high numbers of irregular expenditure, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, We also noted that consequence management was an area of concern within the portfolio. If we reflect on the progress that has been made this year, Chairperson, firstly, we recommend that the committee attends to the area of action plans and the oversight processes. And certainly there, Chairperson, we are pleased with the performance that the portfolio has displayed. We are pleased with the oversight that has been played by this committee. We've seen the committee conducting physical visits during the current financial year. We've seen the committee calling on various entities, including the department, to make commitments on the audit findings. But not only that, Chairperson, as we continue to perform our audits, we saw a change and a positivity towards the audit process. We saw commitments from management, from accounting officers, accounting authorities, through the audit processes. And all of that, Chairperson, has collectively then, led by the minister, collectively led to an improvement in the overall audit outcomes. So when it comes to progress on action plans, certainly we have then classified the progress made as the committee has implemented what we had requested. And for that, we commend the efforts and the work of this committee. On the area of vacancies, being a contributor or a root cause to some of the findings that we had raised, we also have seen significant improvements in this regard. Critical vacancies have been filled, and not just filled, Chairperson, but have been filled with competent officials that have been able to improve audit outcomes and improve service delivery. And again, in this area, we then commend the minister, commend the accounting officers and accounting authority. Another area has been consequence management, where, as I indicate, the context has been increases in non-compliance. In the current year, we've seen an improvement. Not only that, Chairperson, if you look at irregular expenditure, it has reduced from 85 million in the previous year to 80 million in the current year. And if you dissect further or analyze further that 80 million of irregular expenditure in the current year, you start appreciating that there are no new contracts that have been identified as irregular in the portfolio in the current year. So this 80 million is merely a continuation of prior year contracts that were identified as irregular. Fruitless and wasteful expenditure is also reduced in the current year, in particular the IFMS project being the contributor to the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. We also have seen then consequence management also improving. So for that, again, the performance has been assessed as implemented or significantly improved, and we therefore commend the committee. On the last recommendation we made in the last audit cycle, Chairperson, it was related to the IFMS project. And I think at this point, Chairperson, it's just important to summarize the IFMS project or give some brief background on this project, such that as we continue with the presentation, all of us at least have some of the facts or the background associated with this project. The IFMS project is a program of government that was approved through a cabinet resolution in the early 2000s, Chair. And its objective is to replace the legacy systems of government, in particular the financial reporting systems, BES, LOGIS, and various other procurement platforms of government. Replace them with an IFMS system which will offer an integrated solution and enable users to obviously transact end-to-end, whether it's on asset management, procurement activities, or recruitment, as it were. Certainly, with the technology advancements and the need for integration, this project is one of the critical projects within the portfolio that ultimately needs to be implemented. Since its approval, Chairperson, a total of 2.6 billion has been spent on the project. The first expenditure went to what we call IFMS 1, which was a project, and the total expenditure there was about 1.6 billion. And that expenditure, that program of IFMS 1 was later suspended and replaced by what we call IFMS 2. And IFMS 2 would then ensure that government would procure an off-the-shelf solution for government with minimum customization as these solutions come essentially with all the bells and whistles that accompanied. The expenditure on IFMS 2 then, Chairperson, following a cabinet resolution on IFMS 2, the expenditure has been a value of about 1 billion rands. And that expenditure has largely been in the area of licenses that were procured upfront in 2016 to the value of about 400 million. There has also been then 400 million spent on maintenance and support. The problem with this, or the challenges we have noted with the IFMS project, have largely related to the fact that the project itself remains unimplemented as we speak. The expenditure primarily in the area of license, maintenance, and support has not yielded any value. And for that reason, we have classified this expenditure as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. But there have been further challenges resulting to this fruitless and wasteful expenditure. The challenges have been around the area of the memorandum of agreement that is required by Treasury and the various stakeholders that are needed to implement the project. Those stakeholders have essentially not signed this memorandum of agreement. If you look at the DPSA as one of the critical stakeholders, they have not yet signed this MOA, which is critical for the implementation. Another challenge with the project has been the delays in the procurement of service providers to ultimately implement the project itself. And again, those delays then have meant that the expenditure that continues to be incurred is fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So, Chairperson, that is the background on the IFMS project. We also note the fact that there are disagreements between ourselves and the department in relation to the classification of this expenditure. And this has not only impacted conversations around classification, but also impacted the outcomes of the department itself. As we then step off the slide, Chairperson, I think it's important to continue that in our recommendations, then we are urging the committee to continue with its monitoring and with its oversight processes over this project, appreciating that also the SIU has presented a draft report on some of its findings to the scoper in relation to the IFMS. I now shift focus, Chairperson, to the overall audit outcomes. And I think, Chairperson, as we reflect on the audit outcomes, I think it's important to firstly indicate that our mandate as an office is to conduct an audit on 3 areas. The first area we perform an audit is the audit of financial statements. We perform an audit on the area of performance information. Some call it predetermined objectives or AOPO. And lastly, we perform an audit in the area of compliance with legislation. I will spend more time on this slide, Chairperson, and this slide will cover the slides where the narrative is, which is slide 8 up until 18, because most of the information, if we stay on the slide, we are able to see the outcomes on one page, appreciating, of course, that the detail is on the slides 8 to 18. Chairperson, if I start with the outcomes at an overall portfolio level, looking at financial statements. In the area of financial statements, we have seen improvements by the portfolio, improvements when one looking at the area of submission of financial statements on time. In the current year, 100% of the entities within the portfolio submitted by the legislated time frame. And for that, we commend the accounting officers, accounting authorities in this regard. Another area of improvement in the area of financial statements is the number of material misstatements. In the current year, Chairperson, the number of auditees with material misstatements is 2, compared to a total number of 7 in the previous audit cycle. That reduction in material misstatements certainly bears testament to the fact that the action plans that have been implemented by the various accounting officers and auditees, certainly those action plans have been effective. If I then reflect on performance information and the overall outcomes for the portfolio, at an overall level, Chairperson, there are no unresolved material misstatements in the performance results of the various entities within the portfolio. What it simply means then, Chairperson, is that users can place reliance on the information that is before them. So currently, no material misstatements unresolved. In the previous year, we had 2 auditees with unresolved material misstatements. That was the CBDA as well as the GTEC. And those unresolved misstatements were in the areas of usefulness as well as reliability of the performance information. Another important area when you look at performance of the portfolio, performance information of the portfolio, is that a total of 60%, which is about 9 auditees, have achieved more than 80% of their performance targets. Let me repeat, 60% has achieved more than 80% of their performance targets that they had committed to at the start of the year. Certainly, this is commendable performance, appreciating that in the previous year, those that achieved above 80% of their performance targets was only 40% of the portfolio. So we are starting to see then not only an improvement in the financial controls and the performance disciplines, but also we are seeing that the mandates of the respective auditees is also being implemented by the respective auditees. If I reflect on the area, then last area, which is compliance with legislation, Chairperson. In the area of compliance with legislation, we are also seeing improvements in that 9 auditees in the previous audit cycle had material findings. In the current year, the non-compliances have reduced to 5 auditees. And as I indicated earlier, we've seen improvements in irregular expenditure, reductions there. We've seen also the number of non-compliance areas also reducing in the current audit cycle. I will now then summarize the audit outcomes for significant auditees within the portfolio, starting with the department. If I start with National Treasury as a department, the overall audit outcome remains unchanged as a qualified audit outcome with findings in the current year. And if I then dissect the performance of the department across the 3 areas we are mandated to perform an audit, when it comes to financial statements, the qualification relates to the non-disclosure of fruitless and wasteful expenditure related to the IFMS project. This is the same basis for qualification, Chairperson, that we had reported in the previous audit cycle. And an except for finding or a qualified opinion simply then means, Chairperson, one can place reliance on the financial statements except for the disclosures or the lack of disclosures that have been made in relation to fruitless and wasteful expenditure. In other areas of the financial statements, we also did identify material misstatements in the disclosures of contingent liabilities. Those misstatements we identified on contingent liabilities were subsequently corrected by the department, and thus improving the fair presentation. So overall on financial statements, Chairperson, despite the fact that there is a qualified audit opinion, what we have noted in the current financial year is that there are significant improvements. Improvements in the sense that the number of material misstatements on financial statements has significantly reduced. The department in previous years had about 8 material misstatements on financial statement items, and that is reduced to about 3 in the current year. The main root cause for the fact that the department has not improved audit outcomes is firstly, of course, the fact that there is a disagreement on the IFMS project and the classification of expenditure as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. But further than that, Chairperson, another contributing factor is that we have seen the department committing to an action plan and effectively implementing that action plan, thus reducing material misstatements. But the delayed finalization of the audit in the last audit cycle simply has impacted the progress that the department has made. So we certainly urge the department to continue with that action plan, continue with its processes, and we've seen the internal audit function also playing a role in this area. If I then look at the second area for the department performance information, the department has performed exceedingly well in this area. The overall achievement by the department is 84% of its performance targets, simply meaning that the department is delivering on its mandate as committed in the APP. Furthermore, Chairperson, we've noted that the control environment in terms of performance reporting has improved in the department, as there were no material findings that were reported in the current financial audit cycle. If I shift focus to the last area of compliance with legislation, across the many areas where we perform an audit on compliance with legislation, the department, we did not identify material non-compliances other than the non-compliances I alluded to earlier of financial statements or the quality of financial statements. So across supply chain and various other disciplines, the department is certainly leading by example insofar as compliance is concerned. I now shift to the clean audit outcomes, Chairperson. In the current year, the number of clean audit outcomes has significantly improved from 6 clean audit outcomes were reported in the prior year to a total of 11. And this 11 translates to about 69% of the portfolio is clean audit outcomes. We certainly wish to commend the accounting officers, the accounting authorities of the ERBA, the Land Bank Insurance, Land Bank Life Insurance, the DBSA, the FACE Ombud, the FFC, FIC, OPFA, SARS, FCSA, as well as GTEC for the improvement and the performance in this regard. Just highlighting a few of the auditees in this area, Chairperson, starting with SARS. SARS has improved its audit outcomes, and I emphasize SARS, Chairperson, because as I indicated earlier, clean audit outcomes have largely been attained by the smaller auditees within the portfolios. But what we are starting to see in the current year is that the larger entities are certainly also coming to the party, and SARS being one of them. So in the previous year, SARS had findings on the quality of financial statements, and certainly through the action plan that has been implemented, SARS has been able to improve its outcomes to a clean audit outcome. And for that, Chairperson, we commend the entity or the receiver, as it were. Another important thing to highlight with SARS, Chair, is that the clean audit opinion is also accompanied by an 88% achievement on the performance targets that were agreed upfront. And this is an improvement from 75%, which was achieved in the previous year. We've also seen SARS collecting 2 trillion in revenue. thus then contributing positively to the national objectives. If I also focus on the DBSA, Chairperson, the DBSA is one of those auditees that has been clean for quite some time. The areas that we have raised in the past that needed to improve was the performance around service delivery. In the previous year, they had achieved about 58% of the outcomes. In the current year, there has been significant improvement as performance is now at 89% for the DBSA. We certainly commend the Development Bank, and certainly also in the presentation highlight one of the projects that they are implementing from an infrastructure point of view, bearing testament to the fact that the DBSA is one of those entities that is leading by example and also modeling behavior insofar as infrastructure projects are concerned and how to successfully implement. If I then reflect on those that are unqualified with findings, Chairperson, in this area we have a total of 4. We have the Land Bank. The Land Bank is one of those auditees that has regressed when you look at the last year's audit outcomes. The Land Bank was clean, has now regressed to unqualified with findings. The Land Bank continues to be exempt from performance reporting as it received an exemption not to submit a corporate plan, as it were. So it simply means that when we speak of the Land Bank regressing, we have only performed an audit in the area of financial statements and also in the area of compliance with legislation. The reason for the regressed outcome, Chairperson, is due to material findings or material misstatements we identified in the disclosures of collateral items, as well as the calculations of expected credit losses, or some would call it provision for doubtful debts. Those misstatements were material and ultimately impacted the compliance insofar as the quality of submitted financial statements. What is commendable, though, is that the accounting authority and management were able to ultimately correct those misstatements such that fair presentation could be achieved by the time we concluded the audit. What is important to follow up, Chair, with Land Bank is certainly the financial challenges that the bank continues to be faced with. We know that back in 2020, the Land Bank defaulted on some of its obligations, and that default position needs to still be cured, Chairperson, appreciating that the liability solution needs to be concluded to ultimately ensure that the bank is back to its stable footing. In the current year, Chairperson, 5 billion has been injected by National Treasury as an equity injection. And this is to assist the bank to ultimately arrive at this liability solution or agreement with its lenders. And one certainly hopes then that that investment will pay off over the next financial year. So we therefore urge the committee to continue its oversight over the Land Bank and over the commitments that have been made, such that those investments then bear the fruits. Lastly, then, Chairperson, the CBDA, the GPA, are some of the auditees that have material non-compliances, especially in the area of consequence management, where the CBDA, we have reported finding that they've not been able to demonstrate adequate evidence of consequence management action on prior year non-compliances. There have been commitments that have been made by the leadership there, and certainly we therefore urge the committee to continue its oversight in this regard. At GPA, consequence management is one area, as well as supply chain management findings. There has been an improvement when compared to the previous year, but certainly those improvements were not enough to change the audit outcomes, having appointed a new CEO. Another auditee is the PIC, where we identified material misstatements. We identified material non-compliance in the investment activities at the PIC, as these investment activities were not conducted in accordance with the PIC Act. And what we specifically have raised here, Chairperson, are the processes or the risk management processes associated with politically exposed persons, and how these are then identified and ultimately managed by the PIC itself. So appreciating that the controls were not adequate, we then reported a material non-compliance at the PIC. That then, Chairperson, at an overall level, gives you the overall portfolio outcomes. And if I could then sum it up, I would simply say, Chairperson, the portfolio is doing well and has done well. There's been significant improvement. And certainly the work of this committee must be commended. The committee has certainly led from the front and has held the various stakeholders accountable. And we are therefore really requesting that the committee continues with that work. We are also commending the minister or the executive authority for the work performed, in particular in ensuring that vacancies within the portfolio are filled. We commend the accounting officers and the accounting authorities for the performance achieved. Chairperson, I will now go to the recommendations that we are making without running the risk of repeating oneself. I think the message is positive, and certainly one then does want to emphasize that the work around action plans, because the audit report contains what we call material findings, but certainly in the management report, there are other findings. And it's important that that work continues then. It's important that the stability, it's important that consequence management, and also the IFMS project itself, we continue with that work that the committee has started in this regard. Another area of challenge then, Chairperson, is our recommendation, which is number 4, where we are recommending that the portfolio committee oversees and monitors the National Treasury's mandate in relation to local government. And here we are putting this challenge, Chairperson, appreciating that the results are not going to be overnight, but rather over a period of time. And as we focus on the role of National Treasury as a coordinating ministry, what we are proposing and recommending to the committee is that certainly let us collaborate and coordinate with other oversight structures, whether it's at a provincial level or the council level at municipality level. And this collaboration and coordination certainly would start assisting, especially in the areas of sharing best practice and capacity building. We believe certainly that this committee is one of the most effective committees that there is, and certainly has a role to play to then start influencing and shifting the culture across other spheres of government. So we are putting this challenge then, Chairperson, appreciating that it's a mammoth challenge, but certainly working together, we can then realize. And I think for one to then have an appreciation of this recommendation that we are making, I will take you then, Chairperson, to slide 32. And in slide 32, we start unpacking what we found in our audit of National Treasury's mandate as a coordinating ministry. And I think that will then make the conversation much more easier and understandable. For background purposes, as I indicated, National Treasury as a department has a constitutional mandate to set the norms and standards that should be applied by local government and various other entities. And in setting these norms and standards, National Treasury then is also then responsible for monitoring compliance with these norms and standards, also tasked with ensuring that there is support and capacity that is offered, or capacity building rather, that it engages on with the various organs of the state, in particular at local government level. Failing which, then, Chairperson, the National Treasury also is empowered in terms of Section 216 of the Constitution to withhold funding to some of the municipalities in the event that there are material breaches or non-compliances. What we found in the current year, we started looking at the mandate. Certainly, we were satisfied, Chairperson, that the APP of the department is aligned to its mandate, whether you look at the MFMA or the Constitution. What we are calling for as a value add or an area of improvement when we look at the APP targets of the department is that certainly there can be improvements on indicators themselves, in particular to ensure that those indicators are outcome-based as opposed to inputs or measuring inputs. As an example, Chairperson, you will note in the APP of the department, they would measure things such as the number of technical advisors deployed to municipalities, whether it's 80 or a different number. They would measure the number of financial recovery plans produced. And certainly that measurement basis might not enable one to then assess the impact that has been made or achieved through the various interventions. And therefore, we are calling on the department to reflect on the setting of targets such that we can start measuring the outcomes and the impact at local government. Another area we identified, Chairperson, is the coordination between the department and various other coordinating ministries, whether it's COGTA. And certainly we noted that there are instances where there is duplication of effort, and certainly also where you find that with too many cooks in one dish, Chairperson, it simply means that accountability also is not or is compromised to a degree. What we are calling for then, Chairperson, here is that there be clear responsibilities or delineation of responsibilities between the various role players, and that they work together, and that the silo approach to local government certainly is attended to, such that there is realization that in as much as Treasury is responsible for the financial management areas of municipal support, it is important to appreciate that that financial management performance links directly with the service delivery outcomes. And those two are not separated, and one can therefore not say COGTA should focus on service delivery and this one must focus. They have to work together to ultimately realize the objectives that are set out. When we reflect on the area of financial management and support, the state of local government is certainly concerning, and we summarize a number of statistics just to highlight the state of finances for municipalities. In particular, appreciating that 151 municipalities are either bankrupt or insolvent. We note that 43 municipalities are at a crisis level. And as interventions then, Chairperson, in the current year, we noted that National Treasury received requests for financial recovery plans, 15 in total. Out of those 15 recovery plans that were received, only one was completed by the end of the financial year. We also noted that other provincial treasuries also did produce recovery plans. What is important with these recovery plans, Chairperson, is to ensure that there's then detailed programs to, one, implement these recovery plans in a sustainable manner, there's a collaborative effort, and ultimately then you start seeing a realization of some of these outcomes. So that's one area, Chairperson. We also noted that the Treasury did exercise its powers in terms of Section 216 and withhold the allocations to a total of 17 municipalities. And this was largely due to non-compliances that were identified from those municipalities, in particular the non-payment of creditors and the non-submission of financial statements to Treasury on a monthly basis. These interventions were, however, stopped, appreciating that if you continue to withhold funding to these municipalities, you start impacting not only the municipality, but rather the citizens in a negative manner. So certainly the invoking of this section has positively impacted the levels of compliance by these municipalities. However, it simply tells us that, Chairperson, there are different mechanisms that we need to start exploring to ensure that there is greater compliance around financial management principles and so on. National Treasury not only performed work in relation to the APP targets, we also noted a whole host of interventions, programs that National Treasury is implementing to capacitate municipalities. We noted a number of interventions and forums that have been set up to look for solutions and to try and work together, appreciating that Treasury cannot achieve this mammoth task on its own. Certainly, it's important that the accounting officers of municipalities take responsibility. The provinces play a critical role. So the budget lekgotlas and the various engagements did translate into resolutions to improve and to turn around local government. And what is then important is to ensure that there's implementation of some of those resolutions and outcomes. And we are therefore calling on the department and the various other stakeholders to then start also implementing. Despite the many interventions that I'm referring to then, Chair, on capacity building, training, and so on, we note that the improvement on outcomes is limited. And the main reason in our audit that we have concluded limits the impact of these interventions is certainly the skills that are needed at a local government level. We also note the political instability in most of our municipalities, and thus impacting the effectiveness or the impact of these interventions. Another aspect then, Chairperson, is the complexity of the sphere of local government, appreciating that there are many role players that need to work together to ultimately realize their objectives. And where there are many role players and the rules of the game are not properly defined, certainly that collaboration, coordination becomes then challenged. And certainly the DDM is one of those response mechanisms that seeks to then look at how we can better coordinate the efforts of various role players within local government. So with this body of work, Chairperson, and these insights on local government, it is therefore for that reason that we make the call that certainly the portfolio committee, the standing committee on finance, can certainly play a role here and certainly can assist in capacity building, sharing best practice, such that we then see improved outcomes at a municipal level. As I then conclude, Chairperson, with the presentation, I just want to touch on one other area where we have insights, and that is the area on infrastructure delivery. Appreciating the context, Chairperson, and that the finance portfolio's role insofar as infrastructure project is quite limited. It is largely in the area of providing funding, with the few exceptions that we do have entities that are also tasked with implementing the projects themselves. And the implementers in this instance, if you look at the DBSA, is one of those best performing entities in this area. The other entities within the portfolio continue to play a limited role insofar as infrastructure is concerned. But what is of importance then, Chairperson, is to reflect on the performance, firstly, of the DBSA. As I indicated, it's one of those leading by example entities. So, Chairperson, we've taken one project and scoped it as part of our audit, which is the Student Housing Infrastructure Management Office project, or it's called also the Shipmo project. And here, Chairperson, the DBSA, partnering with the Department of Higher Education and Training, they have concluded an MOA to ultimately roll out 300,000 student accommodation beds across 26 universities and also across 50 TVET colleges. This project is over a period of 10 years. In the current year, Chairperson, the targets that were set by the DBSA of 6,200 beds has not been met. But I think the progress that has been made is quite significant in that close to 6,000 beds were delivered per the plans of the DBSA. We note also the various budget spending and the fact that these projects in the University of the Western Cape, Northwest, and Nelson Mandela have been delivered within the timeframes that have been set, pointing to the fact that the challenges that we usually speak of around project delays and so on are not reflected in this project. And really, we commend the DBSA for the work done. But what is of importance, Chairperson, is the impact that this project will have on the lives of South Africans. If you reflect on the student accommodation challenges and how it ultimately links with academic performance of learners at these institutions, providing accommodation that is secure, that is of high quality, certainly is going to improve the experience of our students at various higher learning institutions. It's also going to contain costs for the state in that these projects are run and managed by the state. It's also then going to ensure that the sustainability in outcomes or academic outcomes, because if these environments we provide for our learners are conducive, certainly as a country we will reap the benefits in years to come. So all in all, Chairperson, this is one of the successful projects that have been rolled out, and we commend the DBSA in relation to this. I will now then, Chairperson, conclude the presentation just reflecting on our powers, which is to enforce material irregularities. In relation to material irregularities, Chairperson, the committee will appreciate that we have then since 2019 been mandated to identify what we call material irregularities. And in simple form, material irregularities would be where there is non-compliance in a simplified manner, Chairperson, but also that non-compliance then is linked with financial losses that have been suffered by government. And our role then, Chairperson, is to identify these instances of non-compliances and losses, take appropriate actions, either make recommendations to accounting officers or issue certificate of debts ourselves to recover the losses that have been suffered. In the current year then, Chairperson, the implementation of this material irregularities or the PAA powers we have, in the current year, we have only scoped in 4 entities within the portfolio. We have scoped in National Treasury, the DBSA, and GPA. And what is of importance then in that scoping, then, Chairperson, because we scope our auditees on a phased-in approach basis, appreciating the number of institutions within government as a whole. So we've started with all the departments scoped in. The second phase was to scope in the larger entities. And thirdly, then to scope in those institutions where there are material non-compliances, and hence the inclusion of GPA as one of the auditees in this space. Outcomes, Chairperson, in the work we performed around material irregularities is that it is only at National Treasury where we have identified a material irregularity. This has been reported to the Standing Committee in the previous financial year. And what I will then summarize, Chairperson, is just the progress we've made on the material irregularity. The material irregularity relates to the IFMS project. We referred this material irregularity to the SIU, Chairperson, in January 2022. And the reason we referred the MI to the SIU was that the SIU was already investigating through a proclamation the irregularities or the alleged irregularities associated with the IFMS project. So it was therefore prudent to ensure that we continue to work together and share the information we have with the SIU, and also manage, of course, the taxpayer resources that are used in the processes of investigating the matters that have been raised. That referral then, Chairperson, as I indicated earlier, the SIU has briefed SCOPA on the 13th of September, briefed SCOPA on the outcomes as well as the findings emanating from its investigation. It must be appreciated that the report by the SIU is still in draft stages and will be submitted to the President in due course. We are highlighting this, Chairperson, as I said earlier, such that there is then the oversight and the follow-up around the outcomes of the SIU investigation, but more so ensuring that the IFMS program and project itself ultimately does get implemented as a program of government. So that is the only material irregularity that we are reporting then, Chairperson. Certainly as an office, we will continue to expand the number of scoped in entities, also expand the work we are performing in relation to instances where financial losses have been suffered. So, Chairperson, all in all, the various graphs that one then sees across the presentation then informs the overall picture, the overall message that I've shared with the committee. And one, without running a risk of repetition, is going to then conclude the presentation by simply saying, Chairperson, congratulations to the portfolio for the outcomes that have been received. And certainly the finance portfolio is one of those portfolios that is leading by example, and one of those portfolios that is certainly responding positively to our culture shift messages. Thank you, Chairperson. I will stop at this point and also just hand over back to my business unit leader, Ms. Matanzima.
Thank you so much, Lwazi, for that comprehensive presentation. Thank you so much, Buti. And we'll hand over now to you, Honorable Chair, to give us a guidance on what to follow. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Yeah, on mute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear, Chair, Honorable Chair.
Okay. Thanks very much, business unit leader, Matanzima. and the entire team from AG. And thank you for tabling the report in time, unlike in the previous encounter. Sometimes we don't appreciate people who do their work under very difficult circumstances to provide a report like this, unless sometimes you have got a friend, a family member, or somebody that you are close to who works at the Auditor-General of South Africa. These colleagues, they spend sleepless nights going through all sorts of papers. Sometimes there is no cooperation from government officials, and the Auditor-General has to produce the report in time. There's non-cooperation, or they are given wrong information. So thanks very much, Auditor-General, for doing your work, not only for this portfolio, but including other 40-something departments nationally, and probably more than 100 provincially, and 600 entities. We have to give credit, because if we don't do that, people don't know whether they are doing the right thing or they are doing the wrong things. But I think your committee, SCOAG, will properly do the right thing in terms of how they assess your work. But let me say that this time around, we are quite pleased that you produced the report in time. Last time we were, I think, amongst very few, or not probably the only portfolio where there was no report in time, and it affected our time frames in terms of tabling the B-triple-R. And also, let me thank the entities and the department for the improvement over the administration term. We have to thank those entities without singling them one by one. We know also those officials who work for those entities spend sleepless nights to make sure that they present credible information to the AG to an extent that there is an improvement in terms of clean audit from 6 to 11. I'm not sure, because now it seems there's challenge with money in the fiscus, whether when people perform like this are not going to be given a performance bonus. That's why people sometimes run away from state organs, is because we don't appreciate them. Even just to take them out for lunch or call them to a staff meeting and say, I appreciate what you have done. We just keep quiet as if it's a business as usual. And then the next thing, private sector scout for such people. So let's thank officials who work for these entities that have improved up to 11. But that is, it may, even unqualified audit is a positive audit outcome. I think it must be emphasized. There might be a statement there and there, material statement that they have to correct. But unqualified audit is a positive audit outcome. And such auditees or entities also have to be commended for working under very difficult circumstances to make sure that they get unqualified audit. Those few things that they have to correct, they will attend to them. And we believe that in the next time around, they will also fall in the category of the clean audit. Of course, the issue of municipalities, we can't deal with it now here. Our sister committee or colleagues in COCTA portfolio will deal with that. Even though we are a committee dealing with finance, but I think when we deal with the MTBBS in November, we'll go into details with regard to municipalities. But for today, I think we'll confine ourselves to the National Treasury and also the entities that report to National Treasury. I see there are quite a number of National Treasury officials who have joined who were not here when we started. You are all welcome, colleagues. We know that you are preparing the MTBBS, you are attending all sorts of meetings in cabinet, meeting MECs, and I received a letter the other time from the DG of the new DG. I think we will meet him tomorrow, that they've got a very tight schedule to prepare for the MTBBS. So you are welcome. Let me open for honorable members. What's happening here? There's something. The technology. Okay. Yeah, here we are. Honorable members, let's engage with the report. Clarity-seeking questions, comments. It will be Dr. George, Honorable Mavileta, Honorable Manye, Skosani. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's 4 for now. Dr. George, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks for the presentation. I have 4 questions. My first question relates to the disclosures of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. You mentioned that you did not get full disclosure. Now, is that related to the dispute? And if so, how will this dispute be resolved? And then also, I mean, it's very important that we know about fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So, I mean, if there's a dispute, when will it be done? And then when will we get information on this wasteful spending? Because that is a major big problem generally. So that's question number 1. Then question number 2 is on the land bank. Now, it was mentioned that they have exemption on their plan. Now, we did have an oversight visit to the land bank, and they did talk very excitedly about future plans and getting themselves out of the rather messy situation that they were in then. My understanding still of the land bank is that they have lent a lot of, or they have borrowed a lot of money from a lot of institutions. So they owe many institutions significant amounts of money, and that they can't pay it back. I mean, we know that, and that they defaulted, and then there was some type of recovery. I did ask at the time about the total liabilities of the land bank. So my question is what is their total liability? Do you know that? Because that's vital. And then obviously there needs to be some kind of a plan to fix that business if it's fixable, and then to pay it back. So how big is that hole that they are actually in? Then on the PRC, yeah, we've seen quite a lot of stuff written about the PRC. My question is that, have you looked at the loans and investment portfolio performance? So obviously the PRC lends money to various people or entities, and it invests that money, and then it seems in many instances doesn't get it back, the loan, or gets very little or no return. So do you audit that? So in particular, the compliance to lending and investment criteria, and then the return on that. So, and also in particular, do you look at who gets the funding, and are they contracting with politically connected individuals or companies? So that's my question on the PRC. And then finally, I have a general question. It was mentioned briefly by the chairperson. Now, the National Treasury, as we know, is responsible for the financial management of the people's money. wherever it finds itself in the system, and that includes the municipalities. And we've seen spectacular failure of a large number of municipalities. So my question is that, do you look at that aspect? So do you look at how the Treasury manages and oversees and intervenes, for example, in the that financial aspect specific to the municipalities? Because I mean, nobody seems to have a hand on it. So, and it does belong to Treasury. So do you look at that? And if you do, then have you found anything, or what is your plan on it? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks. Also, there's a request from the media that those who can, please show your face for coverage and for the public to see their representatives out there. Thanks very much. Let me take Honorable Mavileta.
Thank you, Chair. I also would like to take this time to welcome the report of the AG, and also would like to indicate that I believe that this is an outcome of working together in the spirit of unity. And the IFMS matter, we hear that is in progress because we have received a letter from the acting DG indicating that National Treasury is referring the matter for legal recourse, and then we'll wait for the outcomes of that. We also know that you have classified the IFMS matter as fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and that this has led to the qualified audit opinion that we have on the table now today. However, as we are speaking, there is a significant improvement from the National Treasury towards the action plans and that are implemented, and the department is, however, performing very well. And as we celebrate clean audit to some entities, you said from 6 to 11, this audit should be translated to services in the country. You also indicated that, that if you've got a clean audit, if there is no service delivery, it means nothing. We need to see improvements in service deliveries, healthy economy, and healthy country, and a clean country. This means that there should be continuous support and oversight to local government. And we also agree to that local government really need to be supported. And we know that work is being done, but it shouldn't stop. There should be continuous support towards that, because there is a whole lot of challenges in local government. You mentioned some, and I know perhaps there is a lot beyond this. We also agree that there should be improved coordination between all role players within all three spheres of government to ensure a deliberate focus on the improvement of municipalities. Let us not forget about the municipalities. And also, this one, I support as well, the filling of executive posts, because if the posts are not being filled, there's not going to be any focus consequences management, because everybody will be just, passing the buck. But if all the executive posts are filled, I know that consequence management will be done. But however, then we welcome the report, and we know that this is a continuous work, because government doesn't stop when the report is tabled. Work is going on and work is being done, and we know that National Treasury is working very hard. You alluded to that we have also done some, a visit to some of the entities. We've seen that they are really working very hard. Thank you, Chair.
Mhlekazi Manye.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, let me really appreciate the presentation, and I think I would be failing in my duty if I really don't commend the presentations, all of them. the professional manner in which they were presented, prepared, and all that. And there was no waffle, basically. These were very crisp reporting, factual and all. Really, I want to appreciate that. I really think that the Auditor-General's office continues to be the pride of the nation and continues to be one of those few institutions, and without casting aspersions on others, that continues to hold its own in terms of being true to its mandate, not being captured or compromised. So please maintain that posture. So yeah, that's that for that. And then on the issues, I also just wanted to just check, because given the extensiveness of this report, one would have, it would have, at least for me personally, I would have benefited even more if we had received this a bit earlier. I only got mine sent to me by the Parliament on yesterday. When exactly did you send to Parliament? I just want to check as to where is the who's managing us here, so I know as to why such an extensive report only received yesterday. 16 entities, in order to do a good job from where I sit, would have needed a bit more time to look at these things and cross-check and double-check and all of that. So yeah, I just want to know when did you actually submit it? And then on the actual presentations, I welcome all the issues around IFMS, in your comments and all. I just wanted to just check when can we expect to hear from you, from the IFMS, having heard what SIU is saying and all of that. And also I note that there's concurrence between yourself and the SIU in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, despite National Treasury saying no. But I note that at least we've got two independent authorities that have been exemplary in doing their duties, and both of you are saying there's an issue there. So there's an outstanding something from yourselves on that one. I just want to get just by way of timelines. When can you expect to hear from you? I also want to welcome that you've interrogated the issue of the clean audits, and basically you are saying that there has to be substantive clean audit. So it's not clean audits because people have managed it in a particular way. But what I wanted to just check in terms of that substantive clean audit that you seem to be going for now, do you as the AG do in-loco inspections just to make sure that you don't just push paper around and do things purely on paper? Are there any in-loco inspections to verify some of these clean audits, and also to verify the actual service delivery, not PowerPoint presentations that you get given by the various departments or entities? Do you do local inspections? And then I also wanted to just check the 2.6 billion to date that has been spent on IFMS 1. What is your comment, sorry, in terms of the value for money, in terms of the 2.6 billion? I note that you've got 400 million that you flagged for licenses and what have you noted, but I'm interested now in the 2.6 billion on the IFMS 1. Last time, I think in 2018, there was some statement from Parliament that about 1.8 billion was down the drain. There was such a phrasing of statement about that. I don't know now. So when you say 2.6 billion, how much, what is you, can you say something about value for money of that 2.6 billion? And also, through you, Chair, at some point, National Treasury had done its own audit of IFMS, and the internal audit had said some very descriptive words. They said something about catastrophic findings, and they listed those catastrophic findings. Are you able to, did you get, firstly, are you aware of that internal audit report that had those catastrophic findings? And what is your view on those catastrophic findings that were made at the time. And then I also note that you've noted the report from the SIU, the latest one now, as of 13th of September. You might have answered this already, but if you just indulge me to say, what is your comment on the current findings as reported recently by the SIU? Sorry, just excuse me because I've just written some notes here as we're talking. Then there was some part of the presentation had a 69% clean audit outcome. I wasn't sure whether that 69% was for National Treasury, the department, or the overall portfolio, but either way, 31%. You know, the entities that are in this portfolio are very crucial entities. These are entities that should walk on water. I'm not so, I'm not swept under my feet by 69% for these kinds of entities, because these are entities that must shambok everybody else. Now, if they themselves are not able to be at 95%, 100%, that for me is a minimum standard that they should have. And the 5% should be things that were unavoidable. But we have a 31% non-compliance. I don't think it's something that we should clap hands for. So I'm nervous about that, if you could give me comfort there. And then just to go through on some of these entities briefly, SARS, I note the SARS is hitting A+ or whatever. I'm happy with what has been reported on SARS, but I just want to just check with yourselves that in the media reports, there's been all kinds of complaints about SARS not paying people back on time and all of that. Have you looked at what is the issue there? Otherwise, I'm not taking anything away from the good work that SARS is doing, but we are public representatives here. The public is complaining that SARS is not paying them back and all of that. Can you talk to what is your finding on that issue, if any? And then bank, it's fine. And then on the CBDA and GPA, in particular on GPAA, do you have any specific examples on the procurement issues that have caused these misstatements and what have you? What is happening in that space, so that when we do the oversight, we are properly guided? What is happening there? And then on the FIC, there's been other reports that have been not on FIC itself, but there are other reports which I think FIC needs to have had a site of reports where there's illicit financial outflows, as it were. So, and one would have thought that these things FIC would pick up and something is done and all of that. What are the controls that FIC has are they effective, those controls? Because it looks like, I'm not sure if we're winning the war against the financial outflows that are illicit, basically illicit financial outflows. Is FIC managing to track those proactively or what have you? And then finally, on the slide that spoke to key messages on service delivery, I note the report and all of that, but I just wanted to know, the question I'm asking might have been covered elsewhere, as we speak here and now, how many municipalities are under administration as we speak here and now? How many municipalities are under administration? Thank you, Chair. I think that's all from my side.
Enkosi, Honorable Manya. Mhlonishwa Ndaba Ezitha Sikhosana.
Sithokoze Sihlalo. Ngilotshise wonke amalunga ahloniphekileko. Ngilotshise nengikhambeli zethu ezivela ku-Auditor-General. We really appreciate the report that they have presented to us. And indeed, I must say that it is a good story to tell, because there are quite a number of significant improvements compared to last year's report. As they've indicated that on clean audits, there's an improvement from 6 entities to 11, which means it constitutes about 69%. So that is really commendable, and I think we must also join them in appreciating the work that has been done by the relevant accounting officers and accounting authorities of those particular entities, and of course the role played by the National Treasury in playing a supporting role to those particular entities, and also appreciate the fact that about 60% of the entities achieved 80% or more of their targets. That is also really commendable, because it's one thing to set target, but it's another thing to really achieve those particular targets. So if you've got so many entities who are able to achieve their target, about 80% of their target, I think that is really commendable. And I think we must give special recognition to SARS. The fact that SARS has also joined in the best performing entities in getting a clean audit. I think that is also really great, because SARS is a very big entity, and it's difficult, I think, for big entities to get clean audits as compared to smaller entities, because obviously smaller entities they don't deal with a number of areas, number of focus areas. You're looking at their budget and so forth. So it becomes much easier for them to get clean audit as compared to big entities. So SARS is a very big entity. So if it's able to get these achievements, I think we must really congratulate them for that. And the fact that they are also continuing to improve in the collection of revenue. Each and every year we see improvements in the rate of collection of the revenue in order to assist our government in delivering services to our people. Well, on issues of non-compliance, I think we need to indicate that these entities who are still having challenges of not complying to consequence management, we must indicate that we're not happy with that, because if you don't adhere to consequence management, it would make you to find yourself in the same position even next year, even the year after. So immediately there's an audit outcome, and the AG has indicated that these are the matters that need to be attended to. An audit action plan must be made, and consequence management should ensue. People who are found wanting, they should be brought to book. So I see here that we've got some entities that they still have other issues of non-compliance and lack of consequence management, or not adequate consequence management, like your GPA, CBDA, PIC, LB, well, and National Treasury itself. I think we need to express our dissatisfaction with regards to that. These entities, they need to make sure that they deal with matters of non-compliance and issues of consequence management. People who are found wanting, they need to be brought to book, and then an audit action plan must be implemented by all entities in order to assist all these entities to improve. And here, coming to the issue of National Treasury, the qualified audit opinion, yeah, it's quite painful that we are still here at the qualified audit opinion due to the issue of IFMS and due to the issue of the dispute that is there between National Treasury and Auditor-General regarding the classification of the expenditure, which was classified as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Well, there are a lot of improvements in terms of the National Treasury as they were presenting. There are a lot of number of improvements, including the reduction in the irregular expenditures and other stuff. However, all these good things that the National Treasury have done to improve from the previous year's audit opinions, they get overshadowed by this issue of the IFMS dispute, of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure dispute as a result of the IFMS. See? So it means for as long as this matter is not resolved, the National Treasury will continuously get a qualification, even if they can do everything correct on all other aspects. But for as long as this matter is not resolved, they are going to continue to receive a qualification, and that is, I think, quite painful and discouraging. Well, I've heard that there's a legal route that the National Treasury is taking on this matter. But my question is to the Auditor-General, are you, as the Auditor-General and National Treasury, unable to convince each other and resolve this particular matter? Do we really need a court of law to interpret whether that expenditure was fruitless and wasteful or not? Are you, as the AG and National Treasury, both of you as finance practitioner, are you unable to sit down and put all documents, legislations, and convince each other? Do we really have to go to a court of law and let the court of law make the interpretation and the determination as to whether was that a fruitless and wasteful expenditure? Because I think we all know that the legal processes, they take time. It may take a number of years before that matter is resolved. So, and as this drag, it continuously dent the image of the National Treasury. So my question is whether are you unable to sit down and convince each other on this issue of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure? Finally, Chair, I want to welcome, I think, the comment from the AG that says they are also, from now henceforth, they are also going to look at the issue of service delivery, while as they do audit and encouraging departments and institutions to perform well and achieve clean audit, but they're also going to look at versus the issue of service delivery, the issue of delivering the required services. Because as much as we need our books to be clean, but we are also expected to deliver services to our people. You imagine finding a municipality, the political leadership of a municipality as an example, and the management celebrating a clean audit, being very happy that we have received a clean audit. But when we go down to the citizens, we find that the citizens of that particular municipalities or the residents, they are not happy because of poor service delivery. The same municipality that is getting clean audits year after year. So we've got to strike a balance between getting this clean audit, comply with all the laws, but also making sure that we push the issue of service delivery. And I agree with the presenter when he was saying, it's easier to get a clean audit if you don't do anything or if you do very less. Because if you do very less, it means you are going to spend very less. And as you spend less, the lesser the chances that you will have your unauthorized, your irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. So, because the more you spend, the more likely that you might find yourself either having an irregular or an unauthorized or a fruitless and wasteful expenditure. But the lesser you spend, the lesser chances that you will get those undesired expenditure, the lesser chances that you will have your material misstatements and what. So I think we have to get to strike a balance between the two. That as much as we encourage the issue of clean audit, but also have a way of encouraging people to spend their budget and deliver services, so that people, they don't end up not spending because they want to play safe and make sure that they get a clean audit. Or if they received a clean audit previously, they only become obsessed in sustaining the clean audit, and then at the end of the day, compromising their responsibility of giving services to our people. So I think that is it's quite a good initiative, and I think we will be looking at to see as to whether are you really doing that in making sure that you strike a balance between the two, as you encourage compliance, but you also encourage giving services to our people. Thank you very much, Chair.
Siyathokoza mhlonishwa Sikhosana. Noxie, I see a phone here, Yaka, your friend, the tax ombud. Is it younger old phone, or is younger herself who's here in the platform? The ombudswoman or the tax ombud. Cindy, is it younger who's in the platform, or you are using an old phone?
Afternoon, Honorable Chair. I'm not too sure whether it is younger. I know she is going to appear before the committee tomorrow on her annual report, Chairperson, but maybe younger can confirm if it is her or somebody using her old number for the Treasury. Thanks, Chairperson.
Good morning, honorable members. Yes, it's me, because today we have to be here and listen, because the Auditor-General is doing National Treasury and entities falling under the finance family. So tomorrow we will be doing our annual report. Thank you very much for recognizing me, Chair. Thanks.
Yeah, Pela Younger, you are no longer an ordinary person. You are an ombud, tax ombud. So we must properly recognize you. We can't just treat you like any other person. But not in the ya camera ilungi nakhona manje tax ombud. Can the new office buy you the latest gadget so that we can see your face tomorrow? Noxie, ukhona uyanga lapha. I see you are raising your hand. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thank you so much.
Mara una allergy ya camera.
She has. She does. Okay, Chair. I think now I've been infected by the issue Kayanga on the camera. I tried to open it, but it's refusing me. I'm sorry for that, Chair. Sorry. Chair, let me start off by adding my voice to what the honorable members have really said in terms of appreciating the work of the Office of the Auditor-General. And indeed, we're seeing traces of an Office of the AG, which is reaching out to government to work together with government so that we improve. For us as members, the issue is the service delivery to the ordinary people of South Africa. And therefore, each and every effort towards that is an effort that works to better the lives of the people of the country. And therefore, The decline in irregular expenditure, for example, is a positive development, and it signifies overall progress. And for that, we want to commend National Treasury. And secondly, Chair, for me, there is this National Treasury Instruction number 4 of 22-23, where it talks to the PFMA compliance and reporting framework, and it came to effect on the 3rd of January 2023, and is of course issued in terms of section 76(1)(b), E and F, and 2E and 4A, and so on and so forth. My question there, Chair, is what are the implications of this Treasury note, and specifically on the ability of entities to table credible financial statements for financing and the credibility of financial management disclosure? That is my question. And maybe as a follow-up or a combined question, one would like to know, what does then AG recommend in relation to the effects of the note? I think, Chair, the AG has spoken to the issues that affect performance information. And yes, there is 67% at this point. And I think the fact that AG commends National Treasury, we also do not think that the performance of National Treasury is outstanding per se. As I agree with Honorable Manya, that more is expected, because we've always been decrying the fact that National Treasury should lead by example. And I think we should check with the AG as to the implementation of the district development model, where it talks to issues of one budget, one plan. However, consistently, we have spoken on how we think Treasury should lead by example. And as the Chair correctly pointed out, we also do not want to go to the competencies of other portfolio committees and see ourselves implementing or oversighting local government per se. But we have to ask as to what is the process? How are we forging ahead in the implementation of the district development model? Chair, next is the issue of the capping of government debt, and AG notes in relation to the findings that the AG notes in relation to government guarantees that the National Treasury needs to continue ensuring that there is adequate oversight over government spending, and that the increase in government debt is kept to the extent possible, and that there are adequate funds available to stimulate the South African economy, which has been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Although this is a true statement, a suitable statement, but isn't it a macroeconomic policy matter, and therefore not within the parameters of the AG? If only the AG could just unpack that for us, so that we I'm sorry, you are Honorable Mani. Thanks so much. I'm always at loggerheads with how I call you Jimmy or Zwanele or Mani or Manya. Thanks. I'm talking to Honorable Mani, Chair. I'm sorry for that error. Chair, my last question is with regards to the observation by sorry, the observation by AG on the non-compliances of JIPA, CBDA, PIC, National Treasury, LB, and so on. Now, what is the position with regards to the issue that, or maybe put differently, is the position of a Treasury in this particular finding linked to the rationale of the National Treasury instruction that we referred to previously? And attached to that is a question on critical vacant positions in JIPA and CBDA. How do these affect the performance of these entities? I will stop there for now, Chair. Thank you so much.
And goes. I don't see more hands here. De Villiers, why are you quiet these days? I've been heard your voice for a long time. Yeah, it's like we're done with the first round. Auditor-General, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you so much to the honorable members for the comments as well as the questions. I will start with the response of the questions, but with your permission, Honorable Chair, I will also ask my team members to augment and also to respond to some of the key questions that have been raised by the committee. Just to start with Honorable George. Honorable George, yes, it is. There is a dispute that is currently existing between ourselves as well as National Treasury on the classification of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. In this area, we have we raised the dispute. National Treasury raised the dispute in the previous year. We conducted that dispute using our dispute resolution mechanisms that are currently in place when the dispute ensued. However, that dispute resolution mechanism did not resolve the matter. One of the key areas in that dispute resolution process, if we are locking heads, is for the two institutions to have a joint legal counsel to look at both arguments of the matter and then come up with an opinion. However, in that regard, National Treasury was not willing to do the joint legal counsel in this matter. Hence, the matter is now taken to another leg, to the next stage. So that's where we are. We did a joint legal counsel previously in 2021 relating to the same IFMS matter, and the results or the outcome of that legal counsel also was in agreement with the Auditor-General's view. With regards to Land Bank, yes, there is monies borrowed from various institutions by the Land Bank, of which they defaulted in one of them and causing a de facto in all other areas. And the total liability relating to those fines is 22.4 billion. This is where currently the Land Bank with the accounting authority, including the newly appointed CEO, are really working very hard with the lenders to resolve the matter, and also in terms of restructuring that debt and then what is termed a liability solution. So that matter is still, discussion is still underway. With regards to the PIC, yes, as Auditor General, we do look at, we do audit the assets under management and also the investments that have been dispersed, whether in the form of investment as well as the loans. We do look at that work, who has been where is it invested or where the loans have been dispersed. Yes, we do audit that. And then there is a criteria in place. What is key into this area, there is a mandate between the client mandate and PIC. When I talk about client, I'm talking about UIF, I'm talking about compensation fund, I'm talking about the government. There is a mandate that is signed between these two entities on how the monies should be invested, and PIC is following on that regard. There are, yes, areas where the funds are being dispersed to entities that are either the board or the owner is as termed as regarded as political exposed people. Yes, we do look at that work. However, there are political exposed policies that are in place within the PIC on how to monitor, enhance due diligence, and enhance monitoring processes that needs to be in place in that regard. When it comes to National Treasury and the issue of financial management with municipalities, that work, National Treasury, in terms of their mandate, is to support the municipalities. And when it comes to financial management, they do the reviews and identify sometimes there are unfunded budgets, and then raise the concerns with the councils, including the key executives within a municipal level. That work, yes, then the treasuries, both provincial and national treasury, do review and submit. However, the process, what's the key is issue at a municipal level, some not addressing what they've raised or not fixing what they've raised in terms of poor financial management, where the budget has been approved by council with unfunded budgets. So that area of body of work is done. However, the municipal audit outcomes, work is currently underway, and a full view will be able to show what is the outcome on that. If you go to Honorable Mabileta, I think it was not a question, but a comment and appreciation of the work that we have done relating to clean audit, ensuring that those clean audit translate to service delivery, the filling of the vacancies, and also the work that is currently, and the importance of coordination of all spheres of government. With regard to Honorable Manyi, as well, in terms of that, I appreciate your comments on how we've delivered the briefing today. One of the first questions that you said is, when did you send the documents to Parliament? We send the documents. We've got a process internally to send the documents to our parliamentary liaison officer, of which that has done, that our presentation was submitted last week to the parliamentary liaison officer so that it can be submitted to Parliament. When it comes to IFMS, yes, there is a SIL report. There is also our view in terms of the classification of the payments that have been made. Our view, the timelines is, I'm not sure how, I know that the SIU report, the National Treasury and SIU are still discussing and deliberating on that report, as the National Treasury was not entirely agreeing with some of the findings. So I would rather not discuss, because I know that report is still in discussion and the two entities are still deliberating on it. In terms of the clean audits interrogation and whether we do visit some of the service infrastructure projects, yes, as the Auditor-General, we do have engineers that we have employed, appointed within the Auditor-General, that goes to various sites to inspect the projects. Yes, we do that work as the Auditor-General. And then in terms of the work on the 69%, I think the team will give you more detail on the 2.6 billion. Because of that 2.6 billion, I think the 1.6 is relating to the IFMS 1, of which one was abandoned, and then the remainder relates to the IFMS2, the one that we are currently doing, we are currently talking about. In terms of the SARS report, I mean, in terms of the SARS report, in terms of the media, we whether they are paying back, I think based on our view on an overall, we noted, yes, there's the payout of the refunds in the under review have increased when you compare to the previous year. But I think the team will give you details on what is the amount of the payouts current year versus last year. But on an overall basis, that has been done. And then in terms of the specifics as well on FIPA and non-compliances, if I go to Honorable Skosana, Honorable Skosana, I think you also commented on some of the clean audits and whether they're translating to the service delivery, and also commending the accounting officers of their good work, and also the SARS, which is the key entity and the most important entity in terms of our country, and the non-compliance, and also your discomfort or not happy with some of the entities that are still struggling with the non-compliance. And then the key question that you have, Honorable Skosane, was relating to the legal recourse. If we as the Auditor-General and National Treasury are unable to resolve the matter, I think we did follow the dispute resolution process, when we will keep on engaging National Treasury and in this matter to ensure that it is resolved. And we are planning to have again with the meeting with the new DG to discuss further the matter on how we can resolve it amicably. That is also still underway. Honorable Abraham, I know you asked questions relating to the National Instruction Note that has been issued by National Treasury. Yes, there is an instruction note that has been issued by National Treasury on disclosing the irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure in the financial statements. Therefore, in terms of the fact that the new now National Treasury note is saying that the auditors are no longer required to disclose on their financial statements the historical balances of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Those historical balances must only be disclosed on the annual report. What is only going to be disclosed in the annual financial statements that we as the Auditor-General audit is the amounts only pertaining to prior year and also to the current year. So that is what the instruction note is saying. So to respond to that, as the Auditor-General, the refined audit approach is to uphold transparency and accountability to our audits. We therefore, through our audits, continue to audit the irregular and expenditure registers of historical balances, as well as any disclosure included in the annual report. But I think as the portfolio committee, I think it will be important when the annual reports are being tabled to also exercise oversight on those numbers that are disclosed on the annual report relating to historical balances. That's it from my side, and then I will hand over as well to my team, Honorable Chair, if you allow me to augment and some of the areas that I've missed, and then I'll hand over first to Lwazi on the observations of, I think there's non-compliances on GPAS, National Treasury, what is the position, and also other areas as well are relating. And then on other areas that I might have missed, if my team can just pull up your hand, and then you can assist with augmenting the areas as well as on the government debt again. If you Honorable, anything, I will hand over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members, for the questions and the comments. The areas where I will just supplement is on IFMS, Chair. I think the outstanding issues there is to emphasize that Yes, we did receive the internal audit report findings on IFMS at National Treasury. However, as an office, we use various information, not only the internal audit reports, but we use various information and procedures we perform to arrive at our own independent opinion and conclusion. So certainly we did reflect on the internal audit, but the opinions we then make and the findings we then issue are those that are independently then formulated by us as an office. And to the extent that the IFMS project itself spans over a period of close to 20 years, the assessment for value for money consideration then is an assessment we undertake annually on the expenditure incurred. And I think to be more precise then around the 2.6 billion and the breakdown thereof, one would have to reflect on our records over this period of 20 years. But what is critical that we are raising on the IFMS project is that there is two types of expenditure that has been incurred. There is expenditure in particular on the IFMS 2 project that is capital in nature, and this would relate to expenditure, for instance, the acquisition of licenses. And there's also expenditure that is operational in nature, and that would be the expenditure, as an example, on support and maintenance. The assessment of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure then for these two categories is separate and is different, in the sense that capital expenditure, you can only determine if it is fruitless and wasteful. You can only determine that and assess conclusively at the end of that project. So to the extent that that project becomes abandoned, you are then able to have a conclusive position. So at this point, as the HSA, we have not then concluded or made findings related to the initial capital expenditure. That will be deferred if in the event the department no longer wishes to implement IFMS, then certainly that expenditure will be assessed for value. And the reason we do this, Chairperson, is that the intention of the auditee certainly plays a role in assessing fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And if there are still plans to implement, one certainly cannot discount the fact that there might not be value today, but certainly tomorrow there might be value derived from such expenditure. On the operational expenditure side of things, certainly one is able to make conclusive assessments on that type of expenditure. And hence we have been able to say that 400 million worth of IFMS expenditure for license and support maintenance is then fruitless and wasteful. So I think, Chairperson, then to close on Honorable Member Manyi's question on the entire 2.6 billion, certainly we would have to embark on an exercise to look at the 20-year worth of information and be able to provide further classification of that expenditure. Then, Chairperson, if one reflects on the CBDA, the findings we are raising at the CBDA relate to consequence management and the evidence that we were not presented with, evidence that would point to that prior year cases of non-compliance have been investigated and ultimately appropriate actions have been undertaken. The lack of evidence has largely been due to the fact that there is a vacancy at the level of the MD or an equivalent of a CFO. And that vacancy, Chairperson, has impacted the consequence management processes that need to be undertaken. But certainly, commitments have been made by the Accounting Authority that in the next financial year, they will reflect on the backlog of cases that are still outstanding, and that they will put in place the necessary consequence management actions. So I think that is the main reason, Chair. At CBDA, at GPAR, there was a question around the specifics in terms of supply chain. What are the nature of the findings that we are raising there? The findings we are raising at GPAR largely relate to the evaluation processes at the various committees and the allocation of points to your bidders. What we've seen is that when we reperform the points scoring in those tender processes, we know that there are discrepancies. We also have noted instances where new requirements are then included in the process during the evaluation and not necessarily when the bid is advertised, almost similar to changing the rules of the game while the game is in progress. The scale of these non-compliances has reduced, but certainly we have raised these material non-compliances with the concerns necessary to say that GPAR has been, from a procurement point of view, attracting non-compliances in its processes, and therefore there is a need to strengthen the processes there. Other findings that we have raised are in the areas around segregation of duties and essentially just the structuring of the procurement functions and the delegations that are made within the environment, where you find that some of the user department are performing procurement activities and functions. That then exposes the component to risks in the sense that if procurement functions are performed by those in the operational environments, they might not be experts in legislation and in applying various requirements and policy requirements. And that then creates non-compliances as well. So all of those root causes and those structural issues have been raised with the accounting officer, and the commitments have been made that they will attend to some of those issues. Chairperson, I think there was perhaps one matter raised on some of the statements we've made around the national debt and whether those are within the scope or the parameters of the office. Certainly, I think from our side as an office, we engage on these matters, appreciating our mandate and that we should not encroach or overstep in any statements we make. We have to be within the audit framework and the mandate we have. And certainly the reflections we make around the national debt are consistent with our mandate as auditors of the consolidated financial statements for government, as well as the National Revenue Fund, where the national debt is then reported. And our assessment of the debt position of the country, certainly we have raised the risks that are associated with the increases and the fact that there are pressures that contribute to the increase in debt, because the debt we have as a country is an outcome of budget deficits. And where we don't collect enough, in other words, where the economy is not performing as it should, it then translates into an increased debt to the extent that our expenditure remains. So we raise those findings and recommendations in that context. But certainly, one must always be mindful of the fact that we do not want to venture into the policy space, and certainly our statements then are within those limited parameters in that instance. Chair, I will stop at this point in relation to some of the matters that have been raised and request. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Over to you, Nampaka.
Thank you, Lazi. I will call upon someone, Tsidiso from the SARS perspective on the payouts as well. Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Business Unit Leader. So, Honorable Chair, this is in response to Honorable Manyi's question around the refunds and the collections from a SARS perspective. So SARS collected 2 trillion from a gross revenue collection perspective in the prior year. In the year that we are discussing, 381 billion of those were refund payments, which was an increase from the previous year where we had 321 billion. So in response to that, this is really to augment what my business unit leader was then mentioning around the increase that we've seen from a refund payment perspective from a SARS lens, Chair. Thanks, business unit leader and Chair.
Thank you. So for that, I think as well, Honorable Abrahams, you did ask a question relating to the DDM program. Yes, we did work on the DDM program, but particularly from the COCTA perspective. I think that that work in terms of the progress that has been made in delivering on that DDM program to ensure that there is one plan and one government plans has been undertaken, and we will deliver that messages or insights relating to the progress on the portfolio for COCTA. And yes, just want to also respond to that question. I think another question that I think it was relating to the municipalities. Currently, based on the identification of dysfunctional municipalities, I think the number is 66. The numbers that they've been identified as dysfunctional, from the financial service delivery perspective and other. I will just pause, Honorable Chair, and see if all the questions have been responded. Thank you.
Thanks. I see a hand for follow-up, Honorable Manyi.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I must commend the responses. I think they're proper. I'm happy with the responses. I think the one that was missed out from my side is the FIC. And just to repeat the question, I'm interested to know whether FIC has got the right controls to stem the illicit financial flows, whether it's inflow or outflows. Has FIC got the handle of this? I get worried when we get reports elsewhere that the issues around illicit financial flows in the country are just getting out of hand. I mean, recently we've had the Phala saga with all kinds of dollars. What is actually happening? Are our institutions on top of it in terms of these? I mean, FIC is supposed to be the top dog on intelligence and what have you. So is that working? Why is it that we have these Phala dollars here and yet no one seems to know what is happening in that space? I just need to know on that, Chair. And then just lastly, on the issue of SARS, I'm not questioning how much SARS collected versus how much SARS paid out. I was merely talking to some of the complaints that I was reading in the media, that when it comes to those payouts, whether they are more than the collections or whatever, that's not the issue for me. But the public out there, and I said, well, public representatives here, the public out there has been complaining about the delays in SARS payouts, whether the AG's office has had sight of what could be the challenges that SARS maybe is experiencing in that regard. Yeah, so those are the two issues which I think it can be just cleaned up in the response. Thank you.
Okay.
And then, sorry, Chair. And then finally, Chair, because maybe we'll make closing comments on this chapter. Maybe also we may just call on the office to please forward things in time, because I personally have lost a whole weekend. I could have really delved into this presentation, but for me to get it only yesterday when it was submitted last week, I think your office, Chair, there, please, can you speak to the people there to forward information timelessly? Thank you.
Oh, okay. No, we will do so. On the SARS issue, do you want AG to go into those details, or because SARS is here, it must speak for itself on rebates and all? Because I think what the AG does is to audit SARS. But on the operations, SARS has to speak for itself. If it is allowed, they can speak now or tomorrow when we meet. Tomorrow we are meeting the department, isn't it, Alan?
Chair, tomorrow is the ombudsperson on the annual report. National Treasury indicated that they are going to cabinet tomorrow, so they requested that we reschedule their briefing for next week. So they are on Tuesday next week, and then SARS is on Wednesday next week, and tomorrow is the ombudsperson.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not stopping the AG to respond to the questions asked by Honorable Mai. It's just that I wanted to find out if we are meeting them tomorrow so that we can go into detail in those questions. Let me also ask this question before we move towards closure. We visited the SITA complex in Centurion with the Office of the Auditor-General and National Treasury, SITA, and we made findings and recommendations. I think the following, was it the following day? Or yeah, I think it was the following day, we went to meet the minister and we raised this question of IFMS. And the minister at that time was saying that he wants to develop an approach as to how this matter can be dealt with. We have been made a follow-up with the minister. But I think he's on top of it because he was going to have a session with the minister of DPSA. You remember at some stage, DPSA withdrew its participation. Be that as it may, let me find out, Madam Matanzim, is Treasury questioning your methodology of auditing IFMS, or they are saying that IFMS is operational at the SITA complex? What is it that National Treasury is questioning to Auditor-General, which is the highest or called the supreme audit institution in the country? Can come out clean and tell us that this is what Treasury is questioning, because Treasury is not an audit institution. It's a department that is responsible for fiscus. Are they saying that they don't want to be audited on certain aspects, or if they are audited, they must actually come with their own rules? What is it that is at stake? We will be meeting Treasury next week. But for now, because auditing is your responsibility in terms of the law, what is the problem that Treasury, isn't it there must be a problem statement? Tell us what is the problem statement that Treasury is raising in regard to the audit of IFMS, so that we fully understand where the problem is, because we have been there and we raised the matter with the minister. The issue has also been dealt by SCOPA. Can you respond to that and also the follow-up question raised by Honorable Mai?
Thank you so much, Honorable, and also Honorable Mai, for your follow-up questions. Just to start on the National Treasury, I think the disagreement is relating to the understanding or the interpretation of the definition of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. But because in our view, the payments that have been made by National Treasury on this program, we regarded them as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. We are stating that those payments were made in vain. There was no value for money. So that is where the dispute is in terms of the interpretation of that definition. So that is the main issue, Honorable Chair, in terms of our interpretation, in terms of the project. It's on the value for money interpretation. In terms of the SARS not paying on time, yes, we can respond to that, Honorable Manyi, that yes, there is capacity challenges when it comes to SARS in terms of addressing or responding to cases loads. And I know they are really trying. There's strategies that are currently being deployed to ensure that the cases are responded on time as per the system. So this is what I can say in terms of the not paying on time because of the capacity as well as the strategies that are currently being implemented to ensure that there is an increase in terms of responding on the case loads. When it comes to FIC, Honorable Manyi, yes, in terms of FIC, we will definitely respond on this matter through I will follow up. We have a follow-up written response on this matter so that we can be able to respond to you adequately. That, if you allow me, Chair, and also Honorable Manyi, on the FIC question. Thank you.
Okay, there we are. What are you suggesting specifically, Madam Matanzima?
FIC question, Honorable Chair. I say we will have a written response to make sure that we adequately respond to Honorable Manyi.
Oh,
but
okay.
I've responded on others, yes.
Okay, okay. I think we're coming to the end of the meeting. Let me thank Auditor-General for tabling this report before SCOF. You have done well, and as I've said before, that the fact that this time you have tabled the report in time, it assists us to be at the same level with other committees when it comes to processing triple R. So thanks very much for that. And then thank, as I've done before, auditees that have improved in terms of clean audit, and those that have received unqualified audit. And even those who might have received negative audit, there's room for improvement. Let me also emphasize that as Parliament, we should provide support to the Chapter 9 institutions and other institutions that support democracy. The Auditor-General, as I've said before, derives its mandate from the Constitution and is the supreme audit institution. It is guided by the legislative framework in regard to Public Audit Act 25 of 2004 and the Constitution. And we should respect that office and give it the necessary support that it deserves. And we therefore call upon the Auditor-General of South Africa to strengthen democracy by enabling oversight and assist Parliament to play a very strong oversight, accountability, and governance in the public sector. Some years back, when I was a member of the SCOAG is the Standing Committee on Governance, and I've said it before when we met the AG. In the strat plan of AG at that time, and I had you, Mema Tanzima, raising it now, there was what we call value-add audit. Value-add audit. It means that the public sector should utilize public funds as intended of the citizens of South Africa. If a municipality is allocated 20 million to build a stadium, and then they put shelves, 5 shelves, not even a pavilion. So the Auditor-General must say, no, there's nothing wrong. There's value here. It's wrong. Last week, I was reading a story about a municipality, I'm not sure whether it's Northwest, that 2 million rand has been spent on buying laptops and procured from the company that does not have address. So the Auditor-General must say, no problem. 2 million I don't know of a computer that cost 2 million in this country. I've never seen it. Maybe it's because maybe I'm outdated. But it's wrong. Something which is wrong should not be condoned. If there is no value that has been added, this is a matter, Madam Matanzima, that you must infuse in your auditing methodology. We are not teaching you how to conduct the audit. We are not auditors, but we are parliamentarians. We also play oversight on you. It should not, the audit should not just take place in the office. It must go out there. As you remember, in 2016, we did some sort of exercise where we went to Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg, trying to pilot this value-add auditing, to make sure that if we say this is what we have done, can we see it? There must be portfolio of evidence, not just papers that come from the office of the CFO, as Kosana has alluded. But people are crying out there. Is clean audit fine? But where is water? Where are the boreholes that people are talking about? So you can't keep quiet. If an auditee does not show evidence that there is a value that has been added to the lives of our people, you have to make a finding about that. We are not auditors, we are public representatives. We are interested in seeing services being provided on the ground. And you, as the supreme audit institution in the country, you must assist Parliament, because that's your responsibility, to assist Parliament to make sure that in playing oversight, we have got the facts that come from you, because you have the capability. Parliament can conduct audit. So as I'm asking questions like in an issue of IFMS, does Treasury question the methodology that a supreme audit institution is following, or Treasury is saying that IFMS is there when we have been there, all of us? But I think when we meet them next week, you will be there yourself. We are going to take this matter forward. But we can't, for past 5 years, discuss this matter. We are not IFMS, what you call, cadres or propagandists. or only focus on IFMS. There are many things that we have to focus on, because now there's serious problem of budget, which is under serious constraint. We have to deal with that when we deal with MTBBS, but not be dealing with one item after another. Since I joined this committee, I found this matter here, and now we are even nearing the end of the term next year, and we are going to rise early next year, remember, because of election campaign. Will we still be dealing with this item? I think there must be a closure about this item, and we focus on other issues that are of crucial importance to the masses out there. So thanks very much for presenting the report. As members have alluded to, we are quite satisfied in the manner that you have presented it. And the other time, like we've raised the issue of the ecosystem, entities or auditees must see to it that they stick to that methodology and be assisted in making sure that going through the ecosystem will assist them a lot in improving. And those that have also implemented their audit action plans have improved from 6 to 11, and that's commendable. And we congratulate those officials who spend sleepless nights and long hours making sure that they comply with what the AG requires when it comes to audit. Because it will be wrong as parliamentarians when institutions of state improve in terms of performance. We don't say anything. We only talk when there's something wrong, like buying 2 million rand gadgets. So those who are working very hard, it must be known that as parliamentarians, we commend them and congratulate them for the good work that they are doing. Thanks very much, honorable members and everybody who has been in this attendance, including the ombudswoman or tax ombud, whom we are meeting for the first time tomorrow. Younger, tomorrow you come with a camera, no more veil before you. We want to see you. You are now a tax ombud. Tonight, your office must have bought you the latest gadget so that we see you. As Funeko relate a ghost ombud. We want to see you. Thank you very much on the lighter note until we meet again. Of course, you can see.
Thank you, Chair.
It must be clear if it's
Thank you, Chair.
Younger or the institution she works for. We are suspicious, Young.
Recording stopped.